provisions made in the budget. I'll try to answer most of their concerns, questions, seeking clarification by grouping the questions and concerns raised, and broadly about 16 different categories. They've been grouped, and I'll try to speak about them. At the beginning, sir, at the very beginning, I would want to underline the fact that this budget has been made during a very difficult time. The challenges, particularly the external challenges, are very, very severe, most of which are beyond even any projections or predictions. There are no models that you can build and understand how the trends will be, because they are very dynamic, they're changing by the day. So it's very difficult to reasonably plan up for a budget. But despite that, we have tried keeping the assessments as close as possible to what can develop, keeping India's interest topmost. So this immense uncertainty is still playing out, and many Indian imports, which are very critical for our economy to grow, are also going to be left with uncertainty. So we are trying to make sure that the budget somewhat at least foresees all these and is ready for such eventualities. But even as we say about these things, the budget has very clearly identified the difficulties which are before us, because all these years, possibly even decades, we've been talking about globalization. Now we are facing a situation of fragmentation of the world. Whilst the post-COVID time has made states to borrow, and not just Indian states, but countries to borrow, to meet with the specific difficulties that they have to face, and also handhold people and at the same time give growth impetus, has led to a situation where countries are borrowing and rising debt is a problem. Whereas fiscal prudence has always been the matter which gets advocated. People tell that economies will have to be managed more fiscally prudent ways. So globalization versus fragmentation, which is a reality, fiscal prudence versus growing global debt, which is a reality, and everybody wants to have free market situation, but you have aggressive tariff barriers and non-tariff barriers. So you're facing a world where a lot of talk goes on about keep the markets free, but no one country wants to have free market when it comes to their interest. So with all this, the usual practice would be that you will approach multinational institutions to seek redressal or to seek handholding. Multilateral forums have also become today very diluted. They seem to be there but not really exerting themselves even with the given framework of things. So bilateral partnerships and regional forums are the ones which are really governing the situation. So much contrary to all those principles with which the world has moved in terms of an economic order, is all going through a major change. So the uncertainties can be defined in some terms, but you really can't predict what moves. In this situation, the first advanced estimates from the NSO has said that India's economy will grow by 6.4% in real terms and about 9.7% in nominal terms. So the budget this year, we have kept our goals in such a way that we are able to accelerate growth, secure inclusive development, invigorate private sector investments, uplift household sentiments, and also to directly or indirectly enhance spending power of the Indian rising middle class. In all this, we have seen that there are 4 groups of people that if you touch and serve, the impact will be across the country: Garib, youth, Annadata, and Nari. And therefore, every scheme that we have before us has something to bring in terms of benefits for these 4 large groups. Sir, I want to take a minute to put it before this august House that when we are talking about capital expenditure, because I've heard quite a few members speaking about how capital expenditure is probably coming down, the shift is now from moving away from capital expenditure to boosting consumption. I just want to highlight the thought about or the idea of effective capital expenditure. What it does include is core capital outlays in the union budget and also the grants and aid for creation of capital assets to the states. So, though the grants and aid for creation of capital assets is accounted as revenue expenditure in the books of the union government, yet they go to the states to create capital assets, and therefore they are also effectively, eventually, only capital expenditure. So in the budget in the financial year 25-26, which is before us, the effective capital expenditure is projected at 15.48 lakh crore as against 13.18 lakh crore in the RE of 24-25. So there is just no reduction in capital expenditures. But even more, if we take this together with what is done by the public enterprises, they are independent of the budget, they do their own, but they also account for the capital expenditure. If we were to take that also on board, if we take that public enterprises from their own resources, when they invest money for capital expenditure, they do it substantially. And so if I were to include that for the year 25-26, the capital outlay, which I would define as effective capital expenditure, is likely to be in the range of 19.80 lakh crores. So, the concern expressed by some members, which I take up in detail a bit later, but right up front, saying, have sectors been denied money? Have some sectors received lesser than what they received last year? I just want to assure the House, in terms of the numbers that have been presented in the budget, I'll restate them. Sectoral outlays for 25-26, sir. Agriculture and allied activities, 1.71 lakh crores. Rural development, 2.67 lakh crores. These are already given in the budget, it's before us. Urban development and transport, 6.45 lakh crores. Health and education, 2.27 lakh crores. And defense spending, excluding defense pension, is 4.92 lakh crores. So we have not cut down on any sectoral allocations. The total resources being transferred to the states in 25-26 is 25.01 lakh crores. Resources being transferred to the states, which shows an increase of 4.92 lakh crores over the actuals of 23-24. So the portion which has to go to the states are also not cut down. On the contrary, substantial increase has been made in them. So if I spoken specifically about capital expenditure and also sectoral allocations, I want to, because this is the upper house, very experienced members coming from various walks of life are here and who have been in governments are here. I want to highlight a feature of budget making in the last 4 years, 5 years, which speak for themselves. Just 2 examples for each of the years, sir, which is very important considering that members would be eager to know as to how public finance is being managed. Sir, I begin with a contrast, not so much for talking about whose period it was, is it my period, your period, but when crisis hit countries, and when crisis will have to be managed, and when managing crisis you will have to adopt some methods, and post that, the revival. In that sense, I would like to just compare between the global financial crisis as opposed to the crisis of COVID-19, when India's government's attempt resulted that India became fragile 5, whereas after COVID, the attempt that has been made with targeted support to people who needed help has lifted India from the position where it was in fragile 5, post-COVID, from where it was to where we are today on the top 5 economies. So the measures that have been taken are not attributable to one budget itself. It has been sustained over several budgets since 2020. I want to highlight some features for it from each of them. For instance, 2020-21 budget reveals recurrent themes. From then, it reveals recurring themes of transparency to foster credibility of budget making, reforms to catalyze growth, targeted social security, and use of technology for obtaining value for public money. Today, I think it's a very appreciable point. Today, all over the country, concern about how effectively is the taxpayer's rupee being spent is widely heard. You hear from different sections of the society saying taxpayers' money, you're not, which is a right concern citizens should have. I just want to highlight that in 2020-2021 budget, sir, we brought in the element of transparency and strengthening cooperative federalism. How did we do it? We took a big step of bringing on board FCI's, the Food Corporation of India's, off-budget borrowing of about 1.2 lakh crores onto the budget. We said, yes, it might hit us from the point of view of fiscal deficit, but we will have to do it, bring in credibility to the budget making and transparency. We also strengthened the partnership with the states. It is that year that not because Finance Commission has recommended it, not at all. We brought in a 50-year interest-free capital assistance to the states, which was not on the basis of a recommendation which the Finance Commission gave. But we started the process then, and when we started it, we just extended 12,000 crores to the states, saying 50 years, you take it, no interest to pay, you can go ahead with what you want to do in terms of capital expenditure. All states, no state left out in that. And that 12,000 crores of 2020-21 today for this year has reached 1,50,000 crores. 50-year interest-free. This year's budget for this year gives 1,50,000 crores for states. No, they can choose the projects they want to do.